God is aware of your pain and struggles, even when it feels like the world has turned a blind eye. Sometimes we go through seasons in life where the weight of our circumstances becomes almost unbearable. You might feel as though no one truly understands what you're going through. Friends and family can offer support, but there are moments when even their words fall short. Yet, in those moments of loneliness and silence, you are never truly alone. God sees every part of your journey, from your highest highs to your lowest lows, and He is fully aware of the burdens you carry. His awareness isn't passive, it's an active and compassionate understanding of your pain. Pain often feels isolating. It can make you feel as if you are navigating a dark and endless tunnel with no light in sight. The emotional weight, the physical exhaustion, the spiritual weariness, it all piles up. But the comforting truth is this: God sees you. He sees the silent battles you fight within yourself, the tears you cry in the middle of the night when no one else is around. While it may feel like the world is indifferent to your suffering, God's heart is never distant from your pain. Every hurt you experience is known to Him, and His compassion is greater than any sorrow you face. We often question why we suffer. Why do we face hardships, heartbreak, or despair? It's easy to think that no one, not even God, notices our anguish. But the truth is, God is intimately familiar with every detail of your pain. He knows the reasons behind your tears, even the ones you can't fully explain yourself. There are times when words fail you, and all that's left is a heavy heart. Even in those moments, when you feel like you're drowning in silence, God is fully aware of what you're going through. He doesn't just see the surface of your pain, He sees the depth of it. God's awareness of your pain is not the distant observation of a bystander. He understands the complexity of human emotions, the way sorrow can weave itself into every aspect of your life. When you're carrying more than you think you can bear, when the weight of the world feels crushing, God is there seeing it all. He knows the toll it takes on you physically, emotionally, and spiritually. He knows the sleepless nights, the anxious thoughts, and the moments when you're barely holding on. His awareness goes beyond mere observation. It's a compassionate recognition of everything you're facing. You may wonder, if God sees your pain, why doesn't He take it away immediately? While we may not always understand His timing or His ways, we can rest in the assurance that nothing about your struggle is hidden from Him. God is deeply attuned to your circumstances, and He never ignores the cries of His children. His awareness means that He is always present, always watching, always caring. There is no part of your suffering that is too small or insignificant for Him to notice. Every wound, every scar, every cry is fully known by the one who created you. Often we mistake the silence of God for absence, but the truth is, He is closer than we realize. His awareness of your pain is coupled with His promise never to leave you or forsake you. Just because you don't feel immediate relief doesn't mean He's unaware. Sometimes the greatest healing happens in the quiet spaces where you think no one is watching. God sees what you're going through, and He's walking with you through every step of your pain. Even when your heart feels too heavy to carry, He is there, sustaining you in ways you may not even recognize. There's something deeply comforting in knowing that your pain is not lost on God. Unlike human understanding, which can be limited or superficial, God's awareness is complete. He sees the full picture, the why, the how, and the when of your suffering. He knows how the pieces fit together, even when you don't. Your pain has a purpose, even if it's not clear to you right now. God's awareness of your struggles is part of His greater plan for your life. He's not just watching from afar, He's deeply involved, guiding you through it all. Moreover, God's awareness doesn't diminish your pain. It's not a call to simply get over it or move on quickly. No, God's awareness validates your struggle. It acknowledges that what you are going through is real and it matters. Pain is a part of life. And while it's not something we want to endure, it's something that God uses for a purpose. He knows how it stretches you, how it shapes you, and how it ultimately leads you to rely more on Him. God sees not only where you are, but also where you're going. His awareness is tied to his plan for your restoration and healing. In knowing that God is fully aware of your pain, you can find a source of strength. You don't have to carry the burden of being misunderstood because God understands you in ways that no one else ever could. He knows every tear before it falls, every thought before it forms, and every cry before it's uttered. His awareness is constant, unshakable, and rooted in his love for you. No pain you endure is unnoticed by him. In every moment of struggle, remember this: God sees your pain. He knows your heart, and he's walking with you through it all. God draws closer in your lowest moments, even when you feel the furthest from him. It's during those times when life feels unbearable, when you're at your breaking point, that God's presence is more profound than ever. You may not always feel it immediately, and the pain might blind you to the closeness of his presence, but God never abandons his people in their darkest hours. When you are overwhelmed, when your spirit is crushed, he is right there, closer than you realize. In the moments when you think you've been left to face your struggles alone, that's when God is often carrying you, walking beside you in ways that only become clear with time. Pain has a way of drawing our focus inward. The intensity of our suffering can make us feel isolated, as though no one else could possibly understand what we're going through. But in those moments, God is not a distant observer. He doesn't stand far off, waiting for you to figure it out on your own. Instead, he moves in closer, drawing near to your broken heart, offering comfort that is often subtle but always present. In the depths of despair, when your prayers feel like they're going unanswered and your cries seem to echo into emptiness, God is already at work, even if you can't perceive it. God's closeness in your lowest moments is not contingent on your ability to reach out to him perfectly. Sometimes we believe that we need to be strong in our faith at all times, that we need to have the right words, the right mindset, or the right amount of belief to experience God's presence. But God's love doesn't work that way. His closeness is not dependent on your strength or the eloquence of your prayers. In fact, it's often in your weakness, when you have no words left, that God is closest. He understands the groans of your spirit, the wordless prayers that come from a heart too heavy to speak. There is a profound mystery in the way God operates during our lowest moments. While we might expect him to fix everything instantly, his presence is more about being with us in the suffering rather than simply removing it. God's closeness is not always about immediate solutions, it's about enduring presence. He comes alongside you not as a magician who waves away your problems, but as a comforter who holds you through the storm. His nearness is often found in the stillness, in the quiet moments of grace that allow you to keep going when you thought you couldn't take another step. In those moments of deep sorrow or overwhelming fear, God's closeness can manifest in unexpected ways. It might be through a sense of peace that doesn't make sense, a moment of calm amid the chaos, or a sudden reminder that you are not forgotten. Sometimes it's the people he places in your life who help lift your burdens, offering support when you need it most. Other times it's a quiet assurance in your heart that, despite how broken everything seems, God has not left your side. His presence doesn't always come with fanfare or dramatic signs, but in the subtle ways that remind you he is always near. When life takes you to your lowest point, it often feels like God is far away. The noise of your suffering can drown out his voice, and the weight of your pain can make his presence feel distant. But the reality is that God is never closer to you than in these moments. He draws near not because you've earned it, but because his love is steadfast and unchanging. Your pain doesn't push him away, it pulls him closer. He is a refuge for the weary, a safe harbor in the storm. You may not always feel his presence in the way you expect, but that doesn't mean he isn't there, wrapping his arms around you in the quiet, holding you through the night. God's closeness in your darkest times is a reminder of his faithfulness. Human relationships often falter when tested by hardship, but God's love remains constant. When others walk away or fail to understand the depth of your suffering, God stays. He doesn't shy away from your brokenness. Instead, he meets you right in the middle of it, bringing healing in ways that are often beyond your comprehension. His presence is not contingent on your circumstances improving, it's steady, unwavering, and deeply personal. He draws near in ways that show his care for every detail of your life, even the most painful parts. In your lowest moments, you may question where God is, but his closeness is not always something you feel immediately. There are times when your pain is so great, your grief so overwhelming, that it clouds your ability to sense his nearness. But that doesn't mean he's not there. Sometimes it's only after you've come through the storm that you look back and realize how present he was all along. The strength you found to keep going, the grace that sustained you when you thought you had nothing left, those are signs of his nearness, even when you couldn't see it at the time. God's closeness is a constant in your life, especially when you feel like you're falling apart. He draws near not just to observe your pain, but to walk through it with you. He is a God who enters into your suffering, who sits with you in your sadness, and who carries you through the times when you can't carry yourself. In those moments when everything seems to be unraveling, his nearness becomes your source of strength, even if it's not immediately evident. His closeness is what allows you to endure, to keep moving forward, to trust that, despite how things look right now, you are not alone in your lowest moments. Trust God to carry your burdens. This is a powerful and profound statement that resonates deeply, especially in times of struggle and uncertainty. Life often throws challenges our way that feel insurmountable. The weight of our worries, fears, and responsibilities can become overwhelming, causing us to feel as if we're carrying the world on our shoulders. In these moments, the call to trust God is not just an invitation, but a lifeline. It invites us to relinquish control and place our burdens in the hands of a loving and capable God who sees us, knows us, and cares for us deeply. Trusting God to carry your burdens means recognizing that you are not meant to bear them alone. In a world that often glorifies self-reliance and independence, it can be difficult to admit that we need help. We may feel the pressure to appear strong, to handle everything ourselves, and to maintain a facade of composure. But the truth is, we are human and we have limits. We cannot navigate the storms of life without help. God invites us to lay our burdens at his feet, to lean on him when we feel weak, and to surrender our fears and anxieties. Trusting God is a declaration of faith, a recognition that his strength far exceeds our own. When we trust God to carry our burdens, we acknowledge his sovereignty over our lives. We surrender our desire for control and allow him to work in ways we may not understand. This doesn't mean that we abandon responsibility, rather, it means that we give God the first place in our hearts and minds. When we face trials, it's easy to become consumed by the circumstances, to focus on the chaos and uncertainty. But trusting God allows us to shift our gaze from our problems to the one who is bigger than any problem we may encounter. He is our refuge and strength, a present help in times of trouble. The act of trusting God to carry your burdens is also a testament to his faithfulness. Throughout history, God has shown himself to be trustworthy, responding to the cries of his people and providing for their needs. When you reflect on your own life, you may recognize instances where God has intervened in ways that seemed impossible. Maybe it was a moment of unexpected peace in the midst of chaos, a word of encouragement from a friend, or a breakthrough when you least expected it. These experiences serve as reminders that God is not distant, he is intimately involved in our lives, working all things for our good. By trusting him with our burdens, we open the door for him to demonstrate his faithfulness once again. Trusting God also means letting go of the need to understand every detail of our circumstances. It's easy to fall into the trap of wanting answers, wanting to know why things are happening the way they are. We often seek to grasp the bigger picture, hoping to make sense of our pain and struggles. However, trusting God requires us to embrace uncertainty and lean into faith. We may not see the road ahead or understand why we're facing certain challenges, but we can rest assured that God is guiding us. He sees the beginning from the end, and his perspective is far broader than ours. In surrendering our need for clarity, we allow God to work in our lives in ways that exceed our expectations. When we trust God to carry our burdens, we also invite his peace into our hearts. The weight of anxiety and worry can be crippling, affecting our mental, emotional, and even physical well-being. However, when we hand our burdens over to God, we can experience a peace that surpasses all understanding. This peace doesn't mean the absence of challenges, rather, it means finding solace in knowing that God is with us every step of the way. His presence calms our fears and reassures us that we are never alone in our struggles. This peace becomes a refuge, allowing us to navigate life's storms with a sense of security and hope. Trusting God requires vulnerability. It means being honest with ourselves and with him about our struggles and fears. We might feel tempted to hide our burdens, believing that we should be strong enough to handle them on our own. Yet, vulnerability is where true strength lies. When we come before God with our fears, insecurities, and burdens, we invite him into our situations. We acknowledge that we cannot do it alone and that we need his guidance and support. In those moments of vulnerability, God meets us with grace and compassion, ready to help us carry the weight we were never meant to bear alone. In the process of trusting God, we also grow in our relationship with him. Each time we bring our burdens before him, we deepen our understanding of his character and his love for us. Trust is built through experience, and as we witness God's faithfulness in our lives, our trust in him grows stronger. We begin to see him not just as a distant deity, but as a loving Father who cares for our every need. This relationship fosters a sense of intimacy and connection that allows us to approach God with confidence, knowing that he delights in hearing our cries and answering our prayers. Trusting God to carry your burdens is a journey, a continual choice to lay down our worries and fears and to lean into his embrace. It is an invitation to experience his love, grace, and peace in a world that often feels chaotic and overwhelming. As we learn to trust him, we find strength in our weaknesses and courage in our fears. By entrusting our burdens to God, we open ourselves to the possibility of his miraculous work in our lives, enabling us to navigate life with renewed hope and purpose. Surrender control and let go. This is one of the most challenging yet liberating choices we can make in life. Many of us have been conditioned to believe that control equals security. We cling tightly to our plans, our expectations, and the outcomes we desire, convinced that by holding on tightly, we can ensure our own safety and success. However, this illusion of control often leads to anxiety, stress, and disappointment. The truth is that life is inherently unpredictable, and the more we resist this reality, the more we find ourselves struggling against the current. Surrendering control means recognizing our limitations and embracing the freedom that comes from trusting in something greater than ourselves. Letting go doesn't mean that we stop caring about the outcomes in our lives or that we become passive observers. Instead, it means acknowledging that we are not in charge of everything, and that's okay. Surrendering control is an act of humility, an understanding that we are part of a larger story that we might not fully comprehend. It is recognizing that there is a divine plan at work, one that may not always align with our desires but is ultimately for our good. When we release our grip on control, we open ourselves to the possibility of new paths, unexpected blessings, and experiences that we might never have chosen for ourselves, but that lead to growth and transformation. One of the primary reasons we struggle with surrendering control is fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, and fear of losing what we hold dear can all compel us to cling tightly to our plans. This fear can be paralyzing, causing us to stay in situations that are unhealthy or unfulfilling simply because they are familiar. However, surrendering control invites us to confront these fears head-on. It challenges us to ask ourselves what we are really afraid of and to consider the possibility that letting go might actually lead to greater peace and fulfillment. By facing our fears, we can begin to dismantle the illusions that keep us tethered to our need for control. When we surrender control, we also create space for trust to flourish. Trust is the foundation of any meaningful relationship, including our relationship with God. By relinquishing our desire to control every aspect of our lives, we make room for trust to take root. We acknowledge that we do not have all the answers and that it's okay to seek guidance and support from a higher power. This act of surrender is an invitation to deepen our faith, to rely on God's wisdom and understanding instead of solely on our limited perspective. Trusting God allows us to navigate life with confidence, knowing that He has a plan for us that goes beyond our understanding. Letting go also allows us to embrace the present moment fully. When we are constantly focused on the future or preoccupied with what we wish had happened differently in the past, we miss the beauty of the here and now. Surrendering control means letting go of the need to constantly plan and predict what comes next. It encourages us to immerse ourselves in the present, to appreciate the small joys, and to find gratitude in the everyday moments. When we stop trying to control every detail, we can experience life more fully, savoring the richness of each experience as it unfolds. Another significant aspect of surrendering control is recognizing that we are not alone in our struggles. It's easy to feel isolated when we're trying to manage everything ourselves. However, by letting go, we open ourselves up to community and connection. We can lean on others for support, share our burdens, and accept help when it's offered. There is strength in vulnerability, and when we surrender control, we allow ourselves to be seen and known by others. This creates deeper connections and fosters a sense of belonging, reminding us that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. Surrendering control helps us cultivate resilience. Life will inevitably bring challenges, disappointments, and setbacks. When we are rigid in our expectations and outcomes, we are more likely to be thrown off course by life's unpredictability. However, when we practice surrender, we learn to adapt and respond to life as it comes. We become more flexible and open to change, allowing us to navigate difficulties with grace and resilience. This adaptability not only helps us weather storms, but also equips us to thrive in the face of adversity. Surrendering control also invites us to embrace a sense of peace. The constant pressure to control every outcome can lead to chronic stress and anxiety. However, when we let go, we often find a profound sense of relief. We can finally breathe, knowing that we do not have to bear the weight of the world on our shoulders. This peace allows us to approach life with a lighter heart, ready to engage with whatever comes our way. We can find joy in the journey instead of being weighed down by the burden of control. Surrendering control is an ongoing process, a journey rather than a destination. It requires continual practice and reflection as we navigate the complexities of life. Each time we choose to let go, we grow in our understanding of trust, faith, and connection. We learn to embrace uncertainty and find comfort in the knowledge that we do not have to navigate life alone. By surrendering control and letting go, we open ourselves to a life of greater freedom, purpose, and joy. God is always working behind the scenes, weaving the intricate tapestry of our lives in ways we often cannot see or understand. In our fast-paced world, it's easy to become impatient, to want immediate results or clear answers to our prayers. We may find ourselves in difficult situations where the path forward seems murky, and we may question whether God is aware of our struggles or if He is even present at all. However, the truth is that God is continuously at work, orchestrating events, aligning circumstances, and preparing us for what lies ahead, even when it feels like nothing is happening. Often we tend to focus on our immediate circumstances, fixating on the challenges we face and the obstacles that seem insurmountable. This narrow perspective can lead us to believe that we are alone in our struggles and that God has abandoned us in our time of need. Yet, behind the scenes, God is actively engaging with our lives, using every situation, both good and bad, for a greater purpose. He is like a master artist, skillfully blending colors on a canvas, ensuring that every stroke contributes to the larger picture that will ultimately be revealed. While we may only see a few isolated strokes of pain or confusion, God sees the entire masterpiece being created. One of the most profound aspects of God's behind-the-scenes work is His ability to bring about transformation Many times we may not understand the purpose of our trials, but God uses these experiences to shape us into who we are meant to be. Every challenge, every moment of discomfort is an opportunity for growth. As we navigate through hardships, we develop resilience, empathy, and a deeper understanding of ourselves and others. God uses our struggles to refine our character, preparing us for the blessings and responsibilities that await us. This process often occurs in ways that are invisible to us, but its impact can be profound. God is orchestrating divine connections and relationships that we may not even be aware of. While we may feel isolated or alone in our struggles, God is actively bringing people into our lives at the right moment. These connections can provide encouragement, support, and guidance when we need it most. Sometimes it's a chance encounter with a stranger that leads to a meaningful conversation, or a friend reaching out at just the right time with the words we need to hear. God's work behind the scenes is often about orchestrating these moments that can profoundly influence our journey, even if we can't see His hand at work in the process. In the same way, God's timing is perfect, even when it feels delayed. We often want things to happen according to our schedules and desires. However, God sees the bigger picture. His plan is unfolding in ways we may not grasp in the moment. Delays and detours may feel frustrating, but they can often serve as preparation for the blessings to come. Just as a seed must first be buried in the ground before it can sprout into a flower, our dreams and aspirations may require time to grow beneath the surface before they come to fruition. Trusting that God is working behind the scenes can give us the patience to endure these waiting periods with hope and anticipation. God's work behind the scenes often includes healing and restoration. Many of us carry wounds from the past, whether they are emotional, spiritual, or physical. We may feel stuck, unable to move forward because of these burdens. However, God is actively working to heal these wounds, often in ways we cannot see. He gently guides us toward forgiveness, understanding, and self-acceptance. This healing process can take time, and it often involves confronting painful memories and emotions, but God is with us every step of the way, bringing restoration to our hearts and souls. His commitment to our healing is unwavering, even when it feels like progress is slow. God is also working behind the scenes to provide us with opportunities that align with His will for our lives. We often find ourselves at crossroads, unsure of which direction to take. In those moments of uncertainty, we can trust that God is already paving the way for us. He opens doors and creates pathways that we may not even be aware of. It could be a new job opportunity, a chance to pursue a passion, or a moment of clarity regarding a life decision. These opportunities may come unexpectedly, but they are often the result of God's behind-the-scenes work, aligning circumstances to guide us toward our purpose. It's essential to recognize that God's behind-the-scenes work is not just about our individual lives, it extends to the world around us. God is continually at work in the lives of others, bringing hope, healing, and transformation. His influence often transcends our understanding as He weaves together the stories of countless individuals for a greater purpose. We may find ourselves in situations where we are called to be instruments of His work, serving others and being a source of encouragement. By recognizing that God is working behind the scenes in the lives of those around us, we can cultivate compassion, understanding, and a sense of community as we walk this journey together. Understanding that God is always working behind the scenes can bring a profound sense of peace and assurance. Even when life feels chaotic or uncertain, we can rest in the knowledge that we are not alone and that God is actively engaged in our lives. He is orchestrating events, healing wounds, and guiding us toward our purpose. As we learn to trust in His unseen work, we can embrace the journey, knowing that every moment, every struggle, and every triumph is part of a greater narrative crafted by a loving and faithful God. God's presence brings strength and peace, serving as a powerful source of comfort and reassurance in a world that often feels chaotic and overwhelming. Life is filled with challenges, uncertainties, and trials that can leave us feeling weak, anxious, and unsure of our footing. However, when we turn our hearts and minds toward God, we can tap into an unshakable strength that is not our own. This strength transcends our limitations and empowers us to face whatever life throws our way. It is in the quiet moments of surrender and connection that we discover the profound truth: God is not just a distant figure, but an ever-present help in our times of need. In moments of distress, when our hearts are heavy and our spirits feel burdened, God's presence can bring an immediate sense of peace. This peace is unlike any worldly comfort. It is a deep, abiding assurance that calms the storms raging within us. When we invite God into our lives, we create a sanctuary where His presence can envelop us. Even amidst turmoil, we can experience a profound tranquility that surpasses human understanding. This peace guards our hearts and minds, allowing us to navigate life's difficulties with a steadiness that can only come from a divine source. The strength that comes from God's presence is transformative. It enables us to rise above our circumstances, providing us with the resilience needed to endure hardships. When we feel like giving up, God infuses us with renewed energy and determination. It is in those moments of surrender to His presence that we discover the depth of our own potential. God strengthens us not just for our own sake, but also to fulfill His purposes in our lives. His power works through our weaknesses, allowing us to shine brightly even in the darkest of times. Experiencing God's presence in our lives encourages us to cultivate a deeper relationship with Him. It's one thing to acknowledge God's existence, but it's another to invite Him into the depths of our hearts. This relationship fosters intimacy and trust, allowing us to be vulnerable before Him. When we share our fears, hopes, and dreams with God, we create a space where His strength can flow freely into our lives. This connection deepens our understanding of His love and grace, reminding us that we are never alone in our struggles. The more we lean into this relationship, the more we are equipped to face life's challenges with confidence and peace. God's presence also acts as a guiding light in times of confusion and uncertainty. When we feel lost or unsure of the path ahead, His presence provides clarity and direction. By seeking His wisdom through prayer and meditation, we can discern His voice amidst the noise of the world. This guidance reassures us that we are not left to navigate life's complexities on our own. Instead, we have access to divine wisdom that illuminates our way, allowing us to make decisions rooted in faith rather than fear. In His presence, we find the courage to take steps forward, even when the future seems unclear. God's presence fosters a sense of community and belonging. When we recognize that we are part of something larger than ourselves, it creates a bond with others who share the same faith. In moments of doubt or difficulty, the encouragement of fellow believers can uplift our spirits and remind us of God's promises. Together, we can experience the strength that comes from unity and shared faith. God's presence among us enhances our collective resilience, enabling us to support one another as we navigate the challenges of life. The peace that comes from God's presence also serves as a protective shield against the stresses of everyday life. When external pressures threaten to overwhelm us, His peace acts as an anchor, grounding us in the truth of His love and faithfulness. This peace allows us to respond to challenges with grace and wisdom, rather than reacting out of fear or anxiety. In moments of crisis, we can draw upon this inner calm, knowing that God is with us every step of the way. His presence reassures us that, regardless of the circumstances, we can trust in His ultimate plan for our lives. Moreover, God's presence encourages us to cultivate a spirit of gratitude. When we recognize the ways He has been faithful in our lives, our perspective shifts from one of scarcity and fear to one of abundance and hope. Gratitude opens our hearts to receive the strength and peace that God freely offers. By focusing on the blessings in our lives, no matter how small, we create an environment where God's presence can flourish. This gratitude fosters a deeper sense of joy, enabling us to face challenges with a positive mindset and an unwavering trust in God's goodness. Understanding that God's presence brings strength and peace transforms how we approach life's difficulties. Instead of relying solely on our own understanding or strength, we can lean into the profound truth that God is with us, guiding us, and empowering us every step of the way. His presence reassures us that we are never alone and that we can find refuge in Him. In a world that often feels uncertain and chaotic, God's presence becomes our source of stability, reminding us that His strength is made perfect in our weakness and His peace can sustain us through any storm.